Hi friends, JC here. So people near and dear to me have been sharing that they've been feeling heightened anxiety lately, understandably. So I wanted to share some insights and practices that I've found useful for moving anxiety in the hopes that it'll serve you. What I'm sharing comes from my study, practice, and work in the field of somatics. So first I'll share my understanding of what anxiety is and what's behind it. And this differs from the ways that I've often heard it spoken about. And my hope is that this shift in perspective will open up some avenues of possibility for relief that maybe weren't available with the old way of looking at it. It's certainly done that for me. In the next video or two, I'll share a few practices that I've been doing this week, so you can try them out and see if that helps too. So what is anxiety? Lots of people experience it, talk about it, but have you ever defined it? Here's how I look at it. Anxiety is the experience of emotional energy getting tangled in, perpetuated by, and weighed down by mental content. So thoughts, story, interpretations, and observations. And anxiety indicates there's energy inside that needs to be moved. Anxiety also indicates there's energy in a container that's too small for it. To transform anxiety, we match the energy that needs to be moved, or we increase the size of the container. And I'll share some ways that I do that later. So let's do a thought experiment. Imagine that you're in a pool and you have an inflated ball you're holding down under the water. So there's a force moving energy up towards the surface, and if you were to let it go, it would just pop out of the water. To hold it in place, you're sending an equal and opposite force down, even though it might not feel like that. And at first, the force of the ball coming up can actually bring extra energy, even make you feel kind of jumpy. But after some time, imagine you've been doing that all day. People coming in and out of the pool, you've been watching kids play, you're interacting with folks and talking, all the while you're holding the ball down, hours are going by. Do you think that you might get tired, even drained? You might not even notice you're holding it, and without realizing it, you're exhausted. Anxiety can work very similarly. If we imagine that that ball is inside of us, there's energy moving out, some kind of feeling, sensation with an emotional tone. It's then encountering thought. Thought solidifies it by justifying it or arguing with it. It shouldn't feel that way. Even soothing thoughts can be a way of sending the energy back down and in. Then the energy starts to move up again, and we're created this endless loop. I know for me, when I've experienced anxiety, it has that looping quality. And it's also possible that you might feel the energy starting to move out, like the ball, and then actually hold it down because you perceive that you're inside an environment where if you allowed that ball, that energy to pop up, it wouldn't be supported. So in this case, the container, the social container, is too small for the energy. And just like the example with the ball, when we hold it down, it's hard to perceive it as moving energy at all. And what we end up experiencing are the effects of two forces moving in opposing directions inside of our bodies. So opposing forces create tension, and we all know how that feels, which is not great. So I've identified 3 reasons why I've seen anxiety, or experienced anxiety stay stuck, which is 1, we haven't identified what kind of energy in the form of emotion is behind it. 2, we don't know how to move that emotion. 3, we don't know how to increase our container for that emotion. So, why is identifying what's behind it so important? Anxiety is really vague. That's why it can perpetuate indefinitely. We can act on specifics. Vagueness keeps us stuck. So an example of that is if I'm generally uncomfortable, I don't know what to do. If I'm hot, then I can do something to cool myself down, even if it's just blowing on my skin. So the first step that I take to transform anxiety is to identify which emotion is behind it. Now you might think, isn't it always fear? But contrary to what I often hear, my personal experience is that any emotion can manifest as anxiety, even joy. So it's all a matter of which emotions we're able to move or have a right-sized container for in any given context. So, which emotion is it? That can be really tricky. There are a lot of different opinions and schools of thought on how many emotions there are, what defines an emotion, as opposed to, let's say, a sentiment, a mood, or an instinct. So what I've been using to make things simpler and more actionable for me, especially in a stressful moment when it needs to be simple, is working with these 7. So I'm going to show you a little, there we go. See if this shows, yeah. Okay, so we've got disgust, you can see the face there, shame, fear, anger, joy, sadness, and bonding, which is like connectedness. Okay, so these have been observed in common with all mammals, and they look remarkably similar in their expression across individuals and species. So just to review, anxiety, underlying emotion that has not been specified, weighed down by thought, and stuck in a container that is too small for it. We can transform it by identifying what emotion it is. There may be more than one, but we start somewhere. So then we know how to move it by matching that energetic flavor, and we know how to create a bigger container for it. In the future, I'll share some tools for identifying which emotion it is, and practices for how to move it, how to increase the container or capacity. For now, you can take a breath. I just shared a bunch of information. Information is interesting, great, can open up a lot of insight, but practice is what makes the change. And here's what I know about changing patterns under stress. The practice needs to be simple. We are all so resourceful, like incredibly resourceful people. We have a huge chest of tools and practices that we've learned over the years. And my question is, are you able to access all those tools in the moments when you're most under stress to transform it? It takes practice to access our tools under stress. And simple practices have the best chance of being accessed in those moments. And they're really simple to say, but not always easy to do in those stressful moments. So for now, here's your remarkably simple, not necessarily easy, challenge. Next time you notice yourself experiencing anxiety, first, see if you can identify one of the 7 emotions I named: anger, fear, sadness, joy, disgust, shame, bonding. Then, either tell a friend, an ancestor, or a natural element that you're near, it may be the earth, that you're standing on. It may be even the wind that's coming through. It might be the sun. It might be a water feature that you're near. Tell them, I feel, name the emotion that you've identified. Can you hold some of it with me? Can you hold some of it with me? Alternatively, you can give yourself space and time to write, starting with, I feel, insert emotion that you've identified. Okay, so notice how consistently or easily you can do this. Maybe you'll find that there are certain factors that make it easier or harder, or likely you'll notice thoughts that come up to try to talk you out of trying it. So next time I'll share more specific practices for identifying emotions, moving them, and increasing capacity. For now, don't take my word on any of this. Try the simple practice out for yourself in the moment when it matters, and then let me know how it goes.